Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and this is going to be an early review and first impressions for Diablo 4. I've played it a little bit at this point. I've probably got around 10 hours or more into the game. I'm going to show early game footage as to not show spoilers. Let's get into the details here. And we're going to go over the best starting class too, what I believe is the best and most busted starting class, the easiest one that you could possibly pick. Everything is going to be in this video. We are going to go over everything. Let's get into the details on all of it and everything Diablo 4. This is a first impressions video, by the way. I'm about halfway through the campaign now. I'm farther along in this video, but I elected to show nothing further in the campaign as to avoid spoilers because this is more of a first impression review. And overall, so far, I'm having a lot of fun. Somebody who hasn't played Diablo in many years, jumping back into it, it was pretty smooth. It was easy to understand. I didn't even really need the initial tutorial stuff that was there. It kind of felt like everything was self-explanatory, and I was able to learn everything as I went on very easily. Everything was pretty straightforward for the most part. I jumped right in and I did the World 2 or whatever it is. I didn't do the one where heroes die permanently. That felt a little bit too difficult for me starting off, having not played Diablo in many years. But I did elect to use the second world or whatever it is, the more difficult one, the non-easy mode. And even with that said, it wasn't a very difficult game to start and still hasn't been, as everything went relatively smoothly. If you're looking for a game that will hold your hand, this is definitely not going to be the type of game that's going to do that, especially if you turn tutorials off. But even with that said, you're going to be able to catch on to stuff really quickly. Even the equipment menu, I'll go over here. It's very easy to just drop stuff. Tells you what's better than what you've used previously, what to equip, and the equipment menu, very easy to go through. Even tell you if you didn't pick up a weapon for your starting class or something doesn't really suit you, but most importantly, there'll be a very obvious green light, as in I believe with previous Diablos, that will tell you that the equipment you picked up, whether it's worse or better than the equipment that you're currently using. Everything is very easy to understand. It didn't take me long to go through the equipment menu. If you take a couple of minutes and just look through it, you'll be able to figure out everything with ease without needing any additional tutorials, at least in my opinion, because it's fairly straightforward. You can go through everything on the equipment menu. As I mentioned, it's very straightforward. As for weapons themselves, they will have additional things that you're going to have to go through to decide which weapons you like, but overall, obviously, early on, the more damage, the better. For quest, it's actually really simple. There'll be a yellow icon that appears, and you can either finish or start a quest depending on where you're at by just following the map to the yellow icon and then proceeding with whatever it tells you to do. Once again, it's incredibly simple and not hard to understand. So far, I've been mainly following the quest line, and it's actually been leveling me up pretty evenly. I haven't had to do too much in terms of side quests, so if you're not one of those people that likes a ton of filler and wants to go to the post game, this seems like one of the games where you're going to be able to get there very easily by just using the main quest line. As far as bosses, by the way, they're not too challenging, at least so far. And again, I'm about halfway through the main campaign-ish, sort of, maybe around there. I'm right around level 20 now. I showed mainly early game footage for the purpose of this video. Now I want to talk about the best class. The consensus best class seems to be the Necromancer. Necromancer can raise a literal army of the dead that can take the damage for you and dish out a good amount of damage at the same time, and it can also allow you to stand back and utilize whatever skills you want to use while they do their own thing. So far, this class has been incredibly easy for me, simply for the fact that most of the time I'm standing around while the skeleton guys do their own thing, and then I can use whatever skills I want to use or mix in to do damage, and if I need to step back for a moment, I can easily do that because they're always there as a distraction. Necromancer class really does make life easy, and if you're somebody like me who's mostly going to be playing single player, playing alone, it's really good to have a whole bunch of basically an army with you that can kind of be a distraction all the time to make your life a little bit easier. The Necromancer is undoubtedly a very overpowered class. By the way, I want to mention real quick, I'm going to be covering Diablo 4. This is my new separate channel. I have two channels, one for Souls games and Elden Ring, and now one that's going to be covering Diablo 4 and later Armored Core this year. If you're interested in that, definitely be sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, speaking of convenient things, you can easily go back to the main area simply by opening up this menu, and then you can open a portal, and that portal will bring you back to the main hub area in the beginning, or at least where I'm at in the mid-game and everything as far as the town section. You can easily go back. Not too hard at all, and then you can use the map or whatever you need to do in town and then get back to your quest. Going around town is really easy and it's very fun to do. It's a really cool area and the graphics for this game so far is it's very solid. I'm on a 4K TV. I did record this in 180p. I'm doing this on PS5 by the way, and the graphics so far very good looking game. In the main section, hub area and town is specifically really cool looking. It's kind of unique in its own way. Pretty much explored most of it at this point. I recommend doing the same early on when you pick the game up. Just go to the whole town area, explore what you can, and kind of learn about it a little bit. And obviously, there's going to be side quests there as well as your main quest guidelines too. Now, before I do a final review on my first impressions, and I think this is going to end up being my review overall because I think it's like a consensus for me, I want to talk about two things I don't like before I talk about everything that I do like. First thing's an obvious one, microtransactions. I am one of those people, and I'll stand firm on this. If you're doing microtransactions in a free game, I get it. You have to make money somehow. But the microtransactions and the amount there is in a game that's going to run you anywhere from $70 to $100, it's kind of crazy. So I'm going to take a point off for the microtransactions. Not a fan of them in paid games. And I want to talk about one other bad thing real quick. Another bad thing is going to be backtracking. Now, this isn't one of those games where it feels good to backtrack. In certain games, when you go backwards or certain places that you've already been before, it's not a huge deal. But when you have to find certain keys or items and you have to backtrack in a game that feels really good when you're going forward and feels natural, it kind of disrupts the flow and kind of goes backwards a little bit, so to speak. As you're going throughout a dungeon you've already explored, there's no enemies, you maybe are looking for an item, it can get a little tedious. That's really the only part so far that I haven't enjoyed. So all in all, with about 10 to 15 hours into Diablo 4 so far, how do I feel about it? What is my final review? Well, my final review is an 8 out of 10. I took those 2 points off. Everything else is really good. Has addictive gameplay. The loot, finding the loot's really fun actually. And then of course, just beating up enemies and bosses and whatnot with the Necromancer class. It has been an absolute blast so far, and I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, Diablo 4 is really fun so far. This is a game that I can without a doubt recommend to you. Is it worth a purchase? For me, it's absolutely worth the purchase so far. I can see myself putting many hours into the game, and I'm really looking forward to the post-game, which I've heard good things about so far. That should be pretty exciting. Once you get to level 50 onwards and you finish the campaign, obviously have all the post-game stuff. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Heard good things already. And so far, the campaign's been pretty fun. If you're looking for this one man's opinion on whether or not you should buy Diablo 4, I would say so far the gameplay has been really smooth. This is a fantastic game in terms of how much content's packed into it. I can clearly tell already from 10 to 15 hours in the game that there's a lot of content here and it is well worth the asking price. By the way, also, I think you pretty much have to be online, but I haven't ran into too many other players and stuff. I've been mostly doing the single player, so if you're like me and you like single player type games, it's not going to be too much of a problem as far as that goes. Definitely be sure to sub if you want to see more Diablo 4 content. I'm going to be doing a ton of different builds, different things for Diablo 4. I honestly cannot wait. Thanks for watching. As always, I will catch you guys there.